Hi and welcome back to Canada Top to Bottom and another in our series on language tests explained. There are two French language tests available for Canadian immigration. One is the TEF test and the other is the TCF. Today we're going to talk you through the TCF test step by step. Language tests are an essential part of Canadian immigration because if you want to move permanently, or in some cases, to come to study or work, the chances are you will probably have to take a language test in English or French. Rather annoyingly, even if you are fluent in English or French, you still have to take the test to prove your skills.
For Canadian immigration, there are 4 language tests available, 2 for English and 2 for French. Which one you take may depend on your preference, or in most cases may depend on where you are in the world and which tests are available in your country. We have videos on all 4 of the language tests, so check out the videos on the IELTS, the CELPIP and the TEF for a full breakdown. You only need to take a test in one of the languages, but if you take both, it may give you more points. Over the last few years, I have taken all 4 of these language tests, so I can speak from experience about what to expect from each one.
All language tests, whether English or French, are valid for 2 years, and depending on which immigration program you're applying through, you may need higher or lower language level. For example, for the 3 express entry programs, you may need to obtain a CLB level as low as 4 or as high as 7. We've put a link in the description box below to show you what the language requirements are for the 3 economic immigration programs. Now, with English being such a common language, the chances are you have taken or are planning to take an English test as your official language for immigration. And, as was the case with us, are perhaps looking to take a French test to boost your CRS points. If this is your plan, you don't need to reach a particular level, you just want to do as well as possible to get as many extra points as you can.
So, let's get started on looking at the TCF, which stands for Test de Connaissance de Français. To begin, the TCF test is relatively new. Up until a few years ago, the TEF was the only option for French language testing, but the TCF was added as an official test in 2018. As a result, there are fewer resources out there, and it is available in fewer places compared to the TEF, but again, this really depends on where you are. In my case, it was simply a case of which test was available in the area where I was living. Ultimately, the 2 tests are pretty similar, and they test your French language skills in speaking, listening, reading, and writing, but there are some differences in the layout and the format of the tests. Lots of people want to know which one is easier, but this isn't really relevant. Neither is easier than the other. The best advice for that would be to look at practice papers for both of them and choose the one that you prefer.
The TCF lasts a total of 2 hours and 47 minutes, which is broken down into the 4 parts: speaking, listening, reading and writing, or oral expression, oral comprehension, and written expression, as they're known in French. The speaking section lasts 12 minutes, the listening section is 35 minutes long, and the reading and writing sections are both 60 minutes long. The main thing to be aware of with the TCF test is that, unlike the TEF test, you don't know in advance what the general topics may be. The test format is quite vague, unlike other test formats, where you may know, for example, that the writing test will require you to write a letter or respond to a complaint.
Let's go through each of these sections in as much detail as we can and look at some examples. The speaking test assesses your ability to express yourself in spoken French and will be a face-to-face conversation with the examiner, consisting of 3 tasks with increasing levels of difficulty. Task 1 is a 2-minute interview without any time for preparation. This will be on basic topics such as yourself, your family, your hobbies, or your interests. This is showing your ability to interact with a person you don't know in a professional manner.
Task 2 is an exercise which lasts 5.5 minutes, including 2 minutes preparation time. You'll be given an instruction card and will have to try and obtain information from the examiner based on an everyday situation. The final task, task 3, is the most difficult, and you'll be expected to express a point of view without any preparation. This section lasts 4.5 minutes and tests your ability to speak spontaneously, continuously and convincingly in response to a question chosen by the examiner, and you may need to agree or disagree or explain the advantages or disadvantages.
Next, we'll talk about the listening test. This is an audio recording which is 35 minutes long and will most likely be done in a room with other people. The number of people depends on where you are taking the test. It could be several, or it could be just you. You will have to answer 39 multiple choice questions where there are 4 choices but only one of them is correct. The questions start easier and get progressively more difficult, and it's worth noting that you will only hear each recording once. You will hear the audio and then the question.
The 39 questions test your ability to understand spoken French, and at the beginning you may hear simple language such as familiar words and common expressions used in everyday life, such as conversations, interviews or phone calls. You will need to understand the gist of things such as simple, clear messages and announcements, or information about people, facts or events. As the audio and questions get more difficult, you may hear radio or television programs on current affairs, or on professional topics or presentations on abstract topics.
The reading section follows a similar format and has 39 multiple choice questions on 39 different texts, which start quite simple and get progressively more difficult. The reading test is 60 minutes long, and the questions test your ability to understand written French. They may start with simple words and phrases used in everyday situations, for example, friendly or business memos or letters. Other examples are perhaps needing to identify the information contained in everyday documents, such as classified ads, leaflets, menus or timetables.
As the questions become more difficult, you may need to identify information about people, facts or events from letters or longer texts in everyday language relating to daily life or work, or look at articles and reviews and identify the author's opinion on a topic. The final questions are the most difficult and will be long pieces of text which are more complex, such as from books or specialist articles. Of course, the best kind of preparation for this part of the test is to read as much French as possible, from blog posts to advertisements, newspaper articles and magazines, and the internet is a wonderful resource for this.
The final section of the TCF test is the writing test. This is 60 minutes long and consists of 3 tasks. The first task will require you to write a message to describe or explain something. You will be told who the letter needs to be addressed to, so it may be formal or informal. This is a short task with a minimum of 60 words and a maximum of 120 words.
Task 2 is slightly longer, and you'll need to write an article, a letter, a note telling people about your experience of something. This could be a complaint or something you enjoyed. So within it, you may need to include your opinion or an argument. In this section, you are expected to write a minimum of 120 and a maximum of 150 words.
In the final task, you need to write a text comparing 2 points of view on a social issue. This may be for a newspaper, a website, or a colleague, for example. Although you don't know the topic, you know that you will need to give your opinion. So this is the language that you will need to practice. For this task, the word count is a minimum of 120 and a maximum of 180 words.
Okay, so that's all the information available for the TCF test. As we said, it's still a relatively new test, so there isn't as much information available as for the other language tests, especially the English ones. Once the test is finished, the results will be sent to the testing centre where you took your exam within 4 to 8 weeks after the test, and you will be contacted by the test centre to come and collect them.
Having taken both the TCF and the TEF French tests, I personally had a slight preference for the TEF test. The TCF reading test has 39 multiple choice questions on 39 shorter texts, whereas the TEF has slightly longer texts, but with several questions related to each text. Otherwise, the overall tests are pretty similar. For me, the TEF format was preferable, but this is very much down to personal choice. Understanding the format of a language test is just as important as practicing the language, because it will help your preparation and you will go into it knowing what to expect from the questions.
We hope this has helped you decide which language test is for you, and if you choose to take the TCF test, hopefully you'll feel a bit more confident about your preparation now. Let us know if you've taken a language test or are planning to soon. Don't forget to subscribe, and we'll see you next time.